In the wake of the harrowing aftermath, where the cries of anguish and despair echoed through the desolate landscape, the once vibrant streets of Baghdad lay eerily silent, overshadowed by the haunting presence of fields strewn with bones. Hulagu Khan, the feared butcher of Baghdad, had turned his gaze towards Syria, leaving behind a legacy of destruction and terror that cast a long shadow over the land. Meanwhile, in the courts of Aleppo and Damascus, Sultan al-Nasir Yusuf grappled with the weighty decision of whether to bow before the might of the Mongol horde or stand defiant against their advancing armies. Mongol envoys, emissaries of the formidable Khan in the east, delivered a stark ultimatum: surrender and submit to the rule of the great Khan, or face the merciless wrath of his armies. Within the Sultan's inner circle, voices of dissent murmured, advocating for capitulation in the face of overwhelming odds. Yet, Sultan al-Nasir Yusuf remained resolute in his belief that the fortified walls of his cities could withstand any siege, defiant in the face of impending doom. Among those who dared to challenge the Sultan's resolve was Baybars, a seasoned commander from Egypt whose eyes bore witness to the horrors of war. Despite his warnings that mere fortifications would not deter the Mongol onslaught, his counsel went unheeded, and he reluctantly prepared to lead his followers away from Syria, resigned to its inevitable fate. As death descended upon the ancient city of Aleppo, its once proud citadels and ramparts crumbled beneath the relentless assault of Hulagu Khan's forces. The defenders, helpless to stop the tide of destruction, could only watch in horror as their homes were ravaged and their people slaughtered in the streets. In Damascus, the Sultan's flight left the city vulnerable, and it fell swiftly to the advancing Mongol armies without so much as a whimper of resistance. With the arrival of Mongol administrators, the last remnants of the once mighty Ayyubid dynasty were swept away, their legacy relegated to the annals of history. Amidst the chaos and upheaval, a figure from Egypt's story past emerged once more. Baybars, a former slave who had risen to prominence as a Mamluk warrior, returned to Egypt seeking to broker peace with his old adversary, the Sultan of Egypt, Qutuz. Born into a tribe that had fled the encroaching hordes of invaders, Baybars had endured the trials of slavery and hardship before emerging as a formidable leader. Now, faced with the looming threat of Mongol domination, he stood as a symbol of defiance and resilience, ready to defend his homeland against the encroaching tide of war. As envoys from Hulagu Khan arrived in Cairo bearing a message of conquest and subjugation, Baybars prepared to confront the greatest challenge of his life. With the fate of Egypt hanging in the balance, he knew that the path ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty, yet he remained steadfast in his determination to safeguard his people's freedom and sovereignty. In the aftermath of the clash at Ain Jalut, the landscape was forever altered, marked by the remnants of battle and the echoes of the fallen. As the sun rose over the horizon, casting its golden light upon the fields of strife, the victors stood amidst the carnage, their banners fluttering proudly in the breeze. The Sultan Qutuz, his resolve unwavering in the face of adversity, surveyed the scene with a mixture of relief and grim determination. With the Mongol threat repelled and their forces scattered, Qutuz seized the opportunity to consolidate his power and strengthen his rule. In the wake of his triumph, he dispatched emissaries far and wide, spreading word of his victory and solidifying alliances with neighboring kingdoms. From the bustling streets of Cairo to the distant corners of the empire, the name of Qutuz resounded as a beacon of hope and defiance against the tide of Mongol aggression. Meanwhile, Baybars, the valiant commander whose bravery had turned the tide of battle, found himself thrust into the spotlight of history. Revered as a hero among his fellow Mamluks, Baybars basked in the adulation of the masses, his deeds immortalized in song and story for generations to come. But amidst the celebrations and accolades, shadows lurked in the corners of the palace halls, whispers of treachery and ambition that threatened to unravel the fragile peace. Baybars, his eyes glittering with ambition, watched from the sidelines as Qutuz navigated the complexities of governance, his gaze fixed on the throne that now seemed within his grasp. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, tensions simmered beneath the surface, fueled by rivalries and ambitions that refused to be extinguished. Qutuz, ever vigilant against the specter of betrayal, surrounded himself with loyal advisors and trusted confidants, their watchful eyes scanning the horizon for signs of dissent. Yet, despite his best efforts to maintain stability, the currents of fate proved unpredictable, and the winds of change continued to blow. In a fateful twist of fate, Baybars, driven by his insatiable hunger for power, made his move, striking down Qutuz in a brazen act of treachery that sent shockwaves rippling through the empire. With Qutuz's death, the realm was plunged into turmoil once more as rival factions vied for control and the fate of the empire hung in the balance. Baybars, now seated upon the throne as the new sultan, faced the daunting task of upholding Qutuz's legacy while navigating the treacherous currents of palace intrigue. As the dust settled over the battlefield of Ain Jalut, Hulagu did not see defeat, but rather a prelude to vengeance. His massive army, untouched and eager for battle, stood as a formidable force. Yet, within the ranks of the Mongols, animosity simmered, threatening to tear the empire apart. To the north, Prince Burqa, fueled by disputes over sovereignty and land, harbored a burning desire to punish Hulagu for his massacre of Baghdad and its caliph. The once unified empire now fractured into distinct khanates as the Mongol civil war raged on in the east. Baybars, ever the shrewd strategist, seized upon the opportunity presented by the discord within the Mongol ranks. Forming an alliance with fellow Muslim Burqa and his Golden Horde Khanate, Baybars secured the continuation of the slave trade from Burqa's lands to Egypt, thus ensuring the lifeblood of the Mamluk army. Engaged on two fronts, with Burqa as his ally against Hulagu, Baybars navigated the treacherous waters of politics and warfare with skill and cunning. Meanwhile, Hulagu sought allies of his own, reaching out to King Louis IX of France in a bid for European-Mongol cooperation. However, these attempts at alliance building faltered in the face of Hulagu's death in 1265. His son, Abeka, ascended to the leadership of the Alfated Khanate, marrying the illegitimate daughter of the Byzantine Emperor Michael VIII and issuing threats to Baybars, questioning the loyalty of the former slave who dared rebel against the kings of the earth. When Lord Edward of England called for aid in his crusade in 1271, Abaka answered, dispatching 10,000 Mongols to pillage Syria. Yet, despite their shared goals, the efforts of the Crusaders and Mongols toward effective cooperation often fell short. Baybars, ever vigilant, clashed with the Crusaders upon his return, even reportedly sending an assassin to kill the future King Edward in a desperate bid to protect his realm. As the years passed and tensions simmered, Baybars found himself once again mustering the Mamluk army in 1277. The journey northward was fraught with peril, the weight of long years of war etched upon the Sultan's visage. Camping in the moonlit hills near Elbistan, within striking distance of Mongol territory. As the sun rose over the valley, the Mongols gathered, their ranks swelling with vengeful determination. With a deafening roar, they launched their onslaught upon the Mamluk forces, arrows blotting out the sky as men fell, mangled and broken. Baybars, ever the fearless leader, hastened to reinforce the flank, his voice ringing out above the chaos as he rallied his men for a counterattack. The Mongols, overwhelmed by the ferocity of the Mamluks, found themselves unable to stem the tide as the battlefield became a tapestry of death, the ground littered with the fallen. In the aftermath of victory, the Mamluks, their spirits soaring, prepared to celebrate the Islamic holiday of Eid. However, Baybars, his heart heavy with the weight of the battle, forbade any festivities, lamenting the cost of victory and the lives lost in the struggle. "How can I rejoice?" he mused. "I had believed that if 10,000 horsemen of my army were to meet 30,000 Mongols, I would defeat them. But I met 7,000 Mongols with all my army. The Mongols aroused panic, and my army lost heart. Without Allah's grace, they would have defeated us." Baybars, the indomitable Sultan, breathed his last later that year, his legacy a bulwark against the Mongol advance. Yet, even in death, his memory loomed large, a testament to his cunning and leadership. 4 years after his passing, a massive Mongol army descended upon Syria, only to be vanquished by the resolute Mamluks. Despite a major defeat in 1299, the Mamluks continued to thwart further Mongol conquest in the region, their resolve unyielding in the face of adversity. The Mongols, formidable adversaries to many worthy opponents on the remote edges of their empire, found themselves ultimately undone by their own avarice, brutality, and internal strife. The vision of unending conquest, once dreamed by the legendary Genghis Khan, faded into obscurity as the Mongol Khans turned against each other, their unity fractured by greed and ambition. As Berg Khan, amidst the cold heaps of Mongol dead, lamented, "Mongols are killed by Mongol swords. If we were united, then we would have conquered all of the world." Indeed, it was the division within their own ranks that proved to be the greatest enemy of the mighty Mongol Empire, sealing its eventual downfall in the annals of history.